me know. My
Oh,
kids
it's all
are playing
good.
in the next.
All right. Hey, guys, welcome back to We Talk Money. I wanted to do a special episode this week because in light of all of the disaster of the Luna UST implosion and with markets selling off and everybody kind of freaking out, there's a lot of fear in the markets. And so I wanted to bring on some very toxic Bitcoin maximalists, some other Bitcoin OGs that have a perspective of what real money and what hard money is. And, you know, I don't know about you guys, but every market cycle, it seems like we notice newbies doing the same shit over and over, just buying into scams, you know, and the dollar amounts of these scams every market cycle just get bigger and bigger. And so I just wanted to talk about that and get y'all's perspective. Why don't we just start by introducing you guys? We've got Brad and HODL on here. Tell us, I guess, just like your quick Genesis story and what you do in Bitcoin, and yeah, let's just start there.
You want to go first, HODL?
Sure. Yeah, I got into Bitcoin late 2014, like Christmas of 2014, the very end. Was just immediately captivated by it. Like, I think one of the things, you know, I think it's interesting about the trading thing. I think I would have been a degen trader, just YOLOing in on all of the shit coins if I hadn't had, you know, market experience. And so like in college, I was a day trader and, you know, I was doing really well until I wasn't, which is the story with a lot of traders. I ended up like, you know, riding $80,000 like into the ground because I held the bag on this really bad biopharma stock I was trading. So my my education in trading came from, you know, doing penny stocks basically, which were the shit coins before shit coins, and they still are shit coins, right? And you know, basically when I got into Bitcoin, there was this voice in the back of my head being like, you know, be a real investor, do your due diligence. So I started diving into what Bitcoin was, and then was just fascinated, blown away. Like the rabbit hole was endless, and every day for the last 7 years, I've just been thinking about Bitcoin, talking about Bitcoin, trying to figure out what Bitcoin is, watching the space evolve, and, you know, trying to help other people like sort of understand it too.
Awesome. All right, Brad, what about you?
I got into Bitcoin from the, I'm wearing my old shirt, actually, my Ron Paul Revolution shirt.
Nice.
I coincidentally had thrown this on. This thing is from 2008. This shirt still survived. I got into the idea of sound money, Austrian economics, and things like that through watching the Ron Paul campaign and kind of figuring out that money's a big scam. Dollars are a scam. Save your money, pay off your debts. All that stuff is not actually a good idea when you have a government and a banking system built on debt and creating more money continually that weakens the purchasing power of the dollars you're saving. So I started looking into gold and silver. And, you know, I wasn't like HODL where I was like, yeah, I'm going to trade stocks, because I didn't have a freaking clue about trading anything. I was just like an entrepreneurial mindset person. I came from like a poverty background. I didn't have a example of like, you know, how to save and try to accumulate assets or anything like that. I was totally learning. Like, it was like literally Googling, how do I make money online? And like, what do I invest in? Like shit like that. So through the Ron Paul movement and then the Occupy Wall Street movement and everything, I figured like, you know, scarcity, you know, gold has been money all through history. So I got to get myself some gold, do some property investing, like, you know, Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and Peter Schiff actually too, about, you know, talking about gold and the Federal Reserve and everything. So I came in through that cycle in 2011. When I saw Bitcoin, I was like, geez, this is like Ron Paul money. This is like wet dream for a libertarian money. And I decided I was going to put take half my savings at the time, which wasn't a lot, but, you know, I was sinking most of my money back into my internet business. So I was going to take half my savings and I was going to buy Bitcoin, gold, and silver. Because I was like, you know, silver and gold are money. They've been money all through history. But this Bitcoin thing looks pretty interesting. So I decided to do a third. And thankfully I did that, because the silver's down like 50% in 10 years. I'm still wrecked on the silver. I'm still holding it. Bitcoin's
but
up.
You did okay on Bitcoin. I guess
Bitcoin went up. But, you
Yeah.
know, I sold half my Bitcoin at $30. I always tell that story because I was like, oh, I'm a smart trader. This is what you're supposed to do. I'm supposed to manage my risk. I got to take my profits. I didn't have a real, like, I knew Bitcoin was going to one day go to like, you know, 10,000. That was my number. I was like, one day this thing might be $10,000. But I didn't understand really the full potential of what Bitcoin actually was and how crazy things were going to get in the world. So I thought the stocks were going to burst back in 2011. I was like, the stock market's too high, the housing market's too overpriced. But yeah, thank God that I found Bitcoin, because a lot of those libertarian people, we talk about this often on Clubhouse, HODL and I and a bunch of other Bitcoiners always hang out on Clubhouse. But, you know, a lot of the libertarian Austrian economist types of people, they missed Bitcoin. So they're just so sour on Bitcoin, even still to this day.
They got the narrative right? Like they were looking for hard money. They were looking for scarcity. They understood, you know, the problems with the legacy financial system, but they just didn't anticipate Bitcoin. And now a lot of them either accepted it and are a little bit late to the game, maybe, or they just beat the drum of like gold is the only real money, right? Like you got the Peter Schiffs of the world that are like, I am not capitulating for anybody.
No, I shared an Uber in Miami with Lawrence Lepard, you know, sort of famous gold bug Austrian guy. And he was basically telling me, like, or I told him, I said, listen, man, I feel bad for your generation because you guys like held the torch for 30 years and then we came right in at the end and scooped you. And you weren't very respectful or nice about it, right? And he was like, listen, I get it. I'm in on Bitcoin. Like I'm big in on Bitcoin. But a lot of these clients, you know, they have mental models that are 30 years out of date, and I got to bring them along for the ride and everything. And so, like, I do feel bad for the gold.
Yeah.
You know, it's tough to miss it.
Yeah. Okay. So, you know, we all view Bitcoin through a lens of kind of how like we first got into it, right? Like my introduction was I looked at it as a trading asset. At first in 2011, I thought it was a penny stock. So I didn't touch it for a couple of years. And it wasn't until like 2013 that I was like, oh, this shit's legit and it's going to be huge. So I went all in on it, like as a trading vehicle. And my goal was to accumulate more over time, but I was looking at it as a way just to like build my fiat base and build position sizes. So that's kind of the lens I view it from. Brad, I know you said you sold some at $30. How do you guys view like buying, or do you mine? Do you accumulate? Do you dollar cost average? Do you not buy anymore because your stack is big enough? Like, how do you guys think about it? And have you ever sold any more? Do you sell at all? Like, how do you guys think about that?
You know, so I'll take this one.
HODL, you should tell the story of how we met. It's relevant.
That's a funny story. Yeah. I'll start with that. Brad was Brad's got a lot of exposure to Bitcoin. He's pretty all in, and so am I. I'm like 100% in Bitcoin. So like I do have to sell a little Bitcoin just for expenses because, you know, Bitcoin has done very well for me and I don't have to work anymore. But like, you know, you still got to live and pay for things and whatever. So I sell enough to cover expenses. That's just the reality of being 100% in Bitcoin. But basically, Brad was on Twitter during the March 12th bottom being like, I sold the bottom. I'm having pain in my back. Oh, I can't take it. It's too much. And I was just like, this guy is a fucking pussy. Okay. This is the exact opposite of what you want to do. You need to be buying while this guy is selling. Buy this guy's coins. He doesn't deserve them. He's weak hands. You know, and so
I got harassed, man. Like, you know,
holy shit. So Brad, did you actually sell the March 2020 lows?
Okay, so it's so funny because like HODL created the 6.15 meme. Stack 6.15 Bitcoin to get to your Citadel or whatever. And so like I was like, who is this guy like making fun of me on Twitter? He doesn't even have 6 Bitcoin. Like, you know what? He's trying to get the 6 Bitcoin. Like what? Why do people listen to him? Why? Who cares? Like, because he was just some anonymous handle on Twitter that was riling up all the like the Bitcoin plebs, you know, that were like, so what he was doing was creating like conviction, you know, and I was there like using Twitter like a diary, like, oh, I know the coronavirus thing is gonna kind of come and wreck markets 50%. My back hurts. Like, I don't know how to hedge properly. I don't know how to use futures markets. I'm just gonna take 10% of my Bitcoin off. I'm gonna sell 10% of my Bitcoin here, and then if it drops to 5,000, I'll go back and I'll buy it cheaper. And I was kind of like writing my thought process out, and I actually was getting this crazy back pain for like a year through the bear market, like right at the depths of the bear market until about that point. I was getting this back pain, and it was like, it seems like the only thing that's causing this back pain is like me paying attention to the price of Bitcoin, I guess I'm too exposed to Bitcoin. And then all the Bitcoin, like the Bitcoin plebs and like the toxic Bitcoiners are coming after me. I'm like all in Bitcoin, except for I diversified into some real estate. I'm like, so I just start like, getting hammered everywhere. And like, yes, I did sell the bottom because I'm a shitty trader. I actually sold like near the top of that. I sold it like 9,000 or something like that. It did
Before
drop
that
50%
panic?
before
Yeah.
the panic. It dropped like 50%. And then I'm like, oh, this is going lower. Geez, I guess I was right. So I didn't buy it back until we broke the all-time high at 20K. Once we broke the all-time high at 20K, I've been pretty much I bought like twice as much back as I sold over the next year and a half. So now I'm just like everybody else that came in 2021, where I've raised my cost basis quite a bit because I was just like stacking so much at the like the tops too. So I sold the bottom and bought the top.
Okay, so were you was like your liquid net worth outside of real estate, was it all in Bitcoin at that point?
Myself?
Yeah. Like during the crash, were you mostly in Bitcoin?
No, I was like, I was trying to be a smart investor. And like, this is my story all through since 2011. Like I sold half my Bitcoin at $30 thinking I was a smart trader. And then I started reading all these books about like, trend following and risk management, like what I learned losing $1 million and all Michael Covell's books, Market Wizards. Started learning about risk management and like algorithmic trading strategies and all these different things to try to like take my emotions out of it and learn that like I should just act as an investor and not as a trader, thinking longer term time frames, and started following like Real Vision and things like that in 2019, 2020 to try to get like a better perspective on how to like manage my net worth better. So in 2017, I didn't sell any Bitcoin from that 2011 point until 2017. I was like, I got to diversify. So I sold a little bit, like, I don't know if it was like 20% or something like that. I sold, on the run up in 2017. And then I did diversify outside of like Bitcoin to do some like property and have some cash and things like that. Cause I was like, I guess I got to do like diversification. That's what they say you should do. Even though I'm like, Bitcoin is better money. I'm a Bitcoin maximalist. I'm like, why? I opted into Bitcoin so that I could opt into sound money. Why do I want these dollars again? But dollars are, they're still pretty attractive sometimes. So I did have some dollars and some property, but yeah, it was way too low on Bitcoin. Honestly, I should never have sold as much Bitcoin. I should have bought more at the bottom.
I think this speaks to, in my opinion, when you're trying to, gain the most financially from these markets, there are two sort of cardinal sins that people often mess up. One of them is not being bullish enough on Bitcoin long term, right? So like Brad, selling at $30, obviously that was a big mistake. One of my mistakes was I reached a number of Bitcoin I thought was, enough, and I stopped stacking at $800, which in today's day and age seems so stupid. Kick myself every day for it, right? So like one of my messages to people is like, never take your foot off the gas. And like, I buy $50 worth of Bitcoin every day, not because I have to, because I need to. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, it's
so you're still to this day dollar cost averaging.
Yeah, it's important for me psychologically to continue to, take territory on the Bitcoin blockchain every day. And then the other cardinal sin that people always get wrong is they believe a shitcoin's sales pitch. So they lose track of what they're actually doing as a trader. If you're a trader, you have to be a fucking mercenary. And you can't believe the sales pitch of Terra Luna's going to the moon. I mean, look at Novogratz. Novogratz is a billionaire. There's a huge fucking Terra Luna tattoo. Permanent reminder that he failed cardinal rule number 2, right? And so I just see people make these same two mistakes over and over and over and over again. And I think if you just, have a long-term mindset, even if you are trading, like if you have a long-term mindset, you take gains off the table, you put it in your HODL stack, and your HODL stack is sacred and you don't touch it, you're going to do probably pretty well over the long term.
I completely agree, man. And I'll just pull this up. This is something that I shared, I think, a week or two ago. Basically, like rules to not get fucking wrecked in crypto. Like the biggest mistake that I see, other than, like you said, people underestimate what Bitcoin can do, is they drink the fucking Kool-Aid, man. They start calling themselves lunatics or hexicans or whatever the fuck it is. And it's like, once you buy into the message and you like put all your capital in and you get overexposed to a shitcoin, all discipline goes out the window and it just becomes this emotional thing. And that's why these plebs just keep getting wrecked every market cycle. You know,
so I've thought a lot about this in specific, and I think the reason why is because when you're engaging in shitcoin trading, you actually are engaging in greater fool theory, and you are dumping on people that are less sophisticated than you, and you're taking advantage of people that are less sophisticated than you. You know, in a broad sense, you're not doing it specifically. It's not like going up on the street and mugging somebody, but like people who are lesser market participants than you that have less information asymmetry, they're your exit liquidity, right? And people don't really want to view themselves in that mercenary of a sense. And so they start to go, well, I'm not actually like dumping on retail. What I'm doing is investing in like amazing next level technology that's, you know, Web3 DeFi enabled monkey JPEGs or whatever. and then they believe it. And then they forget all their rules as a trader, and they go, well, Novogratz is in, Pomp's in, this guy's in, that guy's in. It's going to the moon, man. It's like, no, you failed rule number 4, right? Like, and you're gonna get wrecked now. That's what happens.
Yeah, you know, and there tends to be this like moral dilemma of like, is trading evil, or like, should you just hodl? And I guess the way that I get over that, like ethically, is I try to teach people, right? Like I've been doing YouTube videos about crypto and trading for a long time. And I know that there's going to be those emotional people that buy the highs, and I'm going to sell into them, and they're my exit liquidity. But I guess the way that I try to help is I try to teach as much as possible, but it doesn't matter how much I screen this shit. 99% of people are still going to do it the wrong way. Right.
Yeah. You know, there's like a, you know, basically like a market theory that like it's immoral actually to let a stupid person keep their money, right? Like so that's some people view it that way, and I think the people that view it that way have greater success in these sorts of arenas. Like, you know, Kobe, like Crypto Cobain on Twitter, I think he's one of these guys. Like, I don't think he buys into the bullshit. And there's a lot of other guys I could point to who do that, and they have success. But the guys who start to believe it, they often end up, you know, being bag holders, like essentially.
Yeah. Brad, what do you think, man? Is trading evil?
Well, it's funny. Like I've said this often, like I'm a FOMO sapien, so I get it. Like I got sucked into the narratives early as well. Like when I got into Bitcoin, I came into it as an activist. You know, I was like the activist mindset. Like I was all about peer-to-peer cash, decentralizing banks and reducing middlemen, being able to say no and censor you, and like also sound money and also Austrian economics type of things. So it's like a Bitcoin attracts a lot more people like that who typically have like strong principles and ethics, or at least that's part of their calculation. Like it's a important thing for them to think about principles and ethics. Then on the crypto side, during the bull run, you get a lot of charlatans and a lot of grifters and a lot of people that don't necessarily have strong ethics or principles or think long term about things, and they're just driven by trends and FOMO and the idea of like being able to like 10x your money off an altcoin or whatever. So it's not like they're bad people or anything. It's just that they have a different type of mindset. And there's a lot of legitimately like principled people that come in and they actually believe the shit that they're doing is going to help. Like a lot of people that came in and built in DeFi, like there's some real cypherpunks in the Ethereum side of things. They did believe that they were trying to build something that was going to disintermediate banks and whatever. And they're just more entrepreneurial minded. Like they think like, well, I missed Bitcoin, so they fall victim to the that fallacy of like what's that called, where you the free rider fallacy, where they think like, oh well, if I'm going to put my energy into it, I'm going to build my own coin. So Bitcoiners don't mix well with the crypto promoters, and I think there's a middle ground where that's why I honestly, when I try to warn somebody about not trading, because you're most likely going to end up getting wrecked because of the different, you know, like the different problems with trading. It's really hard to follow your rules, even if you have profitable rules. So statistically, you're just going to get wrecked anyways. But if I still have somebody that just really wants to trade, I always send them to you, because you teach people not to drink the Kool-Aid. And that's what we need most in these markets, when there is the opportunity to come in and like, if you really want to put in the energy to do it, most Bitcoiners will just focus on Bitcoin education, learn what Bitcoin is. Don't even try to trade, because statistically you're probably going to get wrecked. But if you have to do it, like follow somebody like you who's going to teach them how to do it right and guide them through the bear market or through the bull market so that they don't end up becoming a bear market bag holder and drinking the Kool-Aid like most of the crypto YouTube influencer trader people who end up just grifting from their audience and selling NFTs and ICOs and community coins and all this stuff. You actually give them some sound information and some like a dose of reality of like what this game really is. And if you do that, I don't think that's unethical. I think that's actually a valuable service to provide to people to kind of like wake them up to like what HODL said, like don't believe these freaking technology narratives. It's all bullshit.
Yeah. Well, and I appreciate that. And my perspective is like, even if you consider yourself just a hodler, like I think in some sense you are still a trader, right? If you're a market participant, you have to understand that you're still playing the game, right? Over here on this extreme, you've got like day traders and scalpers and people that are like trying to make a living from trading, which 99.9% of those people are going to lose money. And then over here, you've got the people that say, I'm a hodler, I never sell. But I'll tell you guys one thing that I've seen is the people that, and not everybody does this, but a lot of the people that I've seen since like the 2013 and 14 boom and bust, and then through 17, and then most recently, a lot of those people that say they're just hodlers and they don't think of themselves as market participants, they're likely to do stuff like you did, Brad, which is like sell the lows during panics. So even if you don't consider yourself like an active trader, I think it still makes sense to develop the skills and the mindset of a trader. That way you don't fall prey to the same shit that screws over even active traders, you know?
I think that, yeah, there is a lot of value, like Brad said, in exposing the game. And one of the things, like to your point, Chris, I tell people who are new market participants, I say, listen, man, be greedy as hell. I want you to be greedy, but be long-term greedy. Don't think about, I'm going to make 50 grand, 100 grand off of this, this quick flip over the next 6 months. Think, I'm going to add several orders of magnitude to my personal net worth.
Hell yeah.
I want that for you. And you should want that for yourself too. I talk to Brad about this all the time. Brad exhibits like tremendous activity bias. And there's a lot of people who have activity bias in this space. It's one of the hardest things to overcome as a human being. We all have natural activity bias. Because essentially, take it back to evolutionary biology. If you're a small mammal on the Sahara grasslands and you see the grass move, 9 times out of 10, it's the wind, but 1 time out of 10, it's a predator and you're about to die. So it behooves you to run away as fast as you can. That's activity, right? So we all have this internal bias, and in order to win long-term in the markets, you have to overcome this bias in yourself. Or, if you're going to be a trader and you're going to act on this bias, you have to have very strict rules that, you stick to, and you don't give in to your emotions, essentially.
Yeah, well said.
Another thing I did too, and like it's been great, like trying to be introspective about like what I started in the bear market, getting into stoicism. It was also because my wife was going through some serious health problems, so I was like getting financially wrecked, and like potentially my wife was gonna die. So I was like having a seriously stressful situation. So I was like going through stoicism and then trying to be introspective and trying to think long term. And I realized that it is more like a gambling addiction to be doing JPEG flipping and ICO hunting and just low cap gem hunting and all that.
Yeah.
Some people are addicted to slot machines and, playing sports betting or whatever. And we had this conversation on Clubhouse the other day. Some people like myself, I realize I'm addicted to that dopamine hit of like finding the low cap gem and trying to flip it for 10x Bitcoin. And that's what I kind of justified to myself in the previous cycles of like 2014. Like, I had also made the dumb moves that a typical person makes when they come in and try to be a trader when they should really just be a long-term investor. And I did the stupid thing like, oh, I don't think Mt. Gox is going to go under because, Roger Ver says it's not going to go under. So like, I'm just going to keep my money on Mt. Gox. Why am I going to bother taking my money off? Then I'll miss the dip, like I wasn't thinking of risk management like you had up on your rules there. Don't take counterparty risk as your 5th rule. I'm pretty sure I saw that, which is something that like Bitcoiners learn eventually. You're either going to learn it from somebody like you teaching it to them, or you're going to get wrecked having your money exposed to counterparty risk or taking a stupid bet or drinking the Kool-Aid or whatever. And there's definitely an element there of like figuring out what your personality is, you should try to like do that work to understand, like, are you capable of trading? Are you capable of hodling? Like
Mhm.
hodling through 80% dips is stressful for a lot of
Yeah.
people. And the one thing I realized, that my back pain was kind of directly related to the net worth, like watching the net worth fluctuate so much up and down and going through all this stress. And this cycle, I haven't had it at all. And it's partly because I got a little bit more healthy. I started doing like back exercises to help release cortisol and stuff like that. But also partly like taking that activity bias that I would have had, where I would have been just staring at the charts and just like watching my net worth drop, and doing other things like investing in Bitcoin businesses with people like HODL. So like
Mhm.
focusing on like, why do I care about Bitcoin so much? How can I use that activity bias to like harness it for good? Like, I'm going to get myself addicted to like finding entrepreneurs that are building Bitcoin businesses, and finding people like Bitcoin Matani in Africa that are translating Bitcoin white paper into like all these native African languages. So like weaponizing your activity bias and your addictions into like harnessing them to do something useful and something good. My back pain's gone. I've probably lost more money than I should have by not being a good trader. But hey, at least I'm like not trying to gamble on JPEGs to like, fulfill that need, whatever that need is.
Yeah, there's so many gems in what you said. I mean, one thing I want to just mirror is like how a lot of people that are just getting into Bitcoin now kind of look at us that have been in it for a long time and they say, "Oh, you guys got lucky," and whatever.
Mhm.
But a lot of people don't appreciate what it's like to go through an 80 or a 90% drawdown, right? They're like, "Oh yeah, I wish I got into Bitcoin in 2011 and I bought a million coins at 15 cents or whatever, right? And I for sure would have held through all those drawdowns." No, 99 out of 100 people would have sold most of that along the
Yeah.
way, and probably at the lows. Because imagine, let's say, in 2017, let's say you have a $1 million worth of Bitcoin, and then it goes up, 20x, right? So you went from 1 million to 20 million, and then it comes all the way back down to like 1 or 2 million. That pain, that drawdown, a lot of people can't stomach that, right? And that's where I think like risk management and like portfolio theory and stuff can help people. But even then, I think most people will screw it up.
It's
Oh,
tough to time it. I tried to time it and I mistimed it. I screwed it up. So even if you're thinking long term and you get it, some of the parts of that trade right, portfolio theory, diversification, like thinking long term, you cannot time everything right. You're going to end up
Yeah.
probably messing it up.
Well, it's like the feeling of, Bitcoin going from 69K to 29K is like this feeling of like, oh man, this sucks, but it's gonna come back. There's a lot of interest in Bitcoin. Bitcoin's a big thing in the world, yada yada. The feeling of Bitcoin going from 20K to 3K was like, I'm an idiot. I'm the stupidest person on earth. For some reason, I'm holding this just because I'm so goddamn stubborn that I'm not gonna sell. I'm just gonna fucking live a miserable life and everything's gonna be bad for me. Like that was the feeling. That was how I used to talk to myself in my head.
Oh man, was your net worth pretty much all in Bitcoin during that time?
Yes. Yeah. But I was still
Whew.
working at that time. So like, and I was earning, well. So like it wasn't as bad as it should have been. And I had a pretty so I spent all of 2018 basically shoring up dry powder. And then here's a classic Bitcoin story. I shored up all my dry powder, like I'm talking mid six-figure sum, like hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I was like, I'm ready to deploy it, baby. Where's the bottom? 6,600. I was like, this is the bottom. I deploy half and then immediately get kicked in the dick. We're down 50%. We go to 3,200.
Yeah.
I was like, fuck.
So
And
you were buying like through here, and then
Yeah.
like it
and then
got cut in
boom,
half.
right there.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah, I
And
call this like the line of hope, right? This was like everybody was watching 6K, and it's like, no, it's not going to go below 6K. Oh shit!
Yep.
And then
Yep.
next thing
And
you know, you're in the threes.
It was like weeks, like probably like right there, like 2-3 weeks before we dropped is what I bought.
Yeah.
And then I deployed the rest of my dry powder at like 3,400 because I was like, fuck it. And I remember I had to go for a walk around the block because like my self-talk in my head was so negative. I was like, that was the dumbest thing you ever did. It's going to $1,000. You're going to get wrecked again. You're a fucking moron, blah, blah, blah. And I went for a walk and I talked myself out of it basically. But yeah, man, it was, it's not tough mentally to like be in these markets.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh man, I mean, I can't imagine having 100% of my liquid net worth in Bitcoin. Like I have a lot of conviction in it, but like anytime I get over 50%, I just get a little nauseous.
Oh yeah.
And
yeah.
like that happens during the bull markets, right? Like those numbers get so fucking big. I look at it and I'm like, I have to sell some just to be able to sleep at night. Like,
dude, it's like twice this year, twice in the past year, I've lost more money than I was worth a year ago. Like,
yeah,
you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
twice.
It's
It
weird.
happened.
Exponential gains mess with you, man. And
Yeah,
nobody like
right.
really talks about that.
Yeah, I mean, I talk about it all the time, and then HODL crucified me for it.
Well, rightfully so if you sold the bottom. But hey, I thank you for that. Like you gifted us those.
I always do the thing. I always say like, yeah, I'm gonna make all the mistakes in public so people can learn from me what not to do.
I love it.
By the way, I want to say that it sounded like I was making a moral judgment on trading earlier, and I just want to say like I've done it all. I'm a degen gambler too. My first money into Bitcoin came from a night at the blackjack tables. I made and lost 80 grand in college day trading penny stocks. I traded shit coins on the way up in 16, 17. So like I am one of the brethren. I'm one of you. I'm just, reformed at this point.
Dude, I think we all have some kind of story like that, right?
Yeah.
Even my business partner, who's like the smartest guy I know, he helped grow a hedge fund from 100 million to $1 billion and then retired in his early 30s. Like he got his start in penny stocks, right? Like you got to start somewhere. And most of the time it's through learning those hard fucking lessons that you're like, oh, trading and investing is actually tough, right? I think the worst thing for somebody is to come in like to a crypto like early in the bull run and then get lucky and think that investing is just that easy. Those people are like way more likely to lose everything during the bear market.
Yep. Here today, gone tomorrow with those people. Like those people come in. I feel bad for those guys actually, because their market tuition, which we all pay, is going to be much more expensive than my market tuition was, because if I had like a couple $1 million in some shitcoin and it happened in the span of 6 to 8 months, I would just be walking around thinking I was the smartest person on earth. And then watching it go to zero, I'd be walking around thinking I was the dumbest person on earth. And that would be kind of brutal for me,
It messes with you.
Oh, the worst part, and this is where like Bitcoiners, at least like the activist minded Bitcoiners, the ones that want to see Bitcoin be deployed as like the base layer of fair money technology for the world to really help the billions of people that live under financial oppression and actually make something like for their life, to have a mission for their life. Like a lot of Bitcoin maximalists, Bitcoin educators and stuff, we obviously are in it for the money. Like we want to we're value maximalists, like we're wealth maximalists. We just feel like Bitcoin is the most obvious choice for that to happen over the long term, and the most likely for generational like gains for most people that aren't going to be able to do it in stocks and any other investment asset. Like when you get like Bitcoiners like that, seeing like Gary V and Mark Cuban and Real Vision shilling toxic garbage like Ripple and BSV and Bored Ape Yacht Club to their millions of followers, that's when it becomes unethical to us. And that's when you get the toxic Bitcoin maximalist response, which the toxic response is just like, we're just so pissed off that so much nonsense can be pushed out into the world. But no, we don't hate penny stock traders. It's not like Bitcoiners are triggered by penny stock traders. It's just penny stock traders. They don't say like, oh yeah, look at like a Vasectomy Corp. Like Vasectomy Corp is going to be the next big medical technology. I'm getting all my vasectomies through Vasectomy Corp from now on. Everybody go all in Vasectomy Corp. I'm a vasectomaxilist now. Like you don't get people selling like the boiler room stuff. Like crypto is basically like full of pump and dumps and boiler rooms and shit.
I agree with Brad entirely. Like, that is the line in the sand, I think, is promotion. When you're out there promoting a shitcoin. If you're trading these markets, listen, you're playing a really high risk, high reward game. And hopefully that, right? It's like, but I'm not mad at you for that. But when you're out there promoting, you're drawing people into the scam. I think
Yeah.
that's a different thing for me.
Yeah, there's so many unethical corners of the crypto world, and that's why I say like everybody should start with the mindset of like I'm a disinterested third party. I'm not a lunatic. I'm not going to claim to be part of any cult. And I think a lot of people prey on newbies that they feel like they missed the Bitcoin boat, right? Because oh man, we've seen those headlines. Everybody got hilariously rich in Bitcoin except for you. And then people, like Cuban and like Elon, they have a huge audience and they use that to say, oh, you can get rich too. Just come on over here. Then you get the YouTubers that are, getting paid by these projects behind the scenes. It's fucking bullshit, man.
Yeah.
It's disgusting. But on that point, I want to pivot over to the Luna situation. Tor was, he took some screenshots of people that their lives have basically been ruined, millions and millions and millions of dollars lost. And even I tweeted out something. It was the co-founder of Real Vision that lost 100% of his crypto portfolio in Luna. Somebody that's out there apparently teaching people about the crypto world put his entire portfolio in Luna, apparently he says he never sold a single token and rode it all the way to zero. I'm like, that is messed up on so many different levels. Like somebody like that should not be teaching or in a position of authority. I don't know. What do you guys have to say about just this whole situation?
Not only that, but I mean, I just, somebody sent me, there was a Y Combinator startup that was doing, DeFi, whatever, and they were promising investors a 15% return. And their 15% return was predicated on them going all in on Luna, getting the 20% return, giving the investors 15 and pocketing the difference. They lost $48 million straight to zero, right? Novogratz straight to zero. CZ Binance straight to zero. So like these, there were very smart, sophisticated players in this who were all drinking the Kool-Aid, right? So like for the little guys to get wrecked on Luna, like I feel worse for the little guys, obviously, than the big guys. But man, it was just like some sort of group delusion or psychosis that was going on around this specific protocol. And I'm not sure how they all believed it. It doesn't make much sense to me at all,
Well, but VCs like, Andreessen Horowitz and things like that, like they're not putting their entire portfolio in a single high risk play, right? Like Bitcoin, sound money, right? That's its own asset. Crypto over here, people need to understand that is like venture level risk times a million, right? So people that put their entire portfolio or a large percentage in it, it's just insane to me, right?
Totally.
Yeah, the worst thing actually, HODL, is that I think in the end, Novogratz only rugged his reputation. I think he actually sold the top of Luna. And
did he?
I think he actually did take the exit liquidity and took like 300 million from the retail plebs that he convinced basically had a hand in convincing that this Ponzi scheme was actually like legit technology. So that makes me even more aggravated that somebody like Novo can go out and shill this stuff, and Remy from Real Vision and Raoul Pal from Real Vision and all these influential people can promote Ponzi scam logic, like legitimate Ponzi scam logic, and then make millions of dollars, sometimes hundreds of millions of dollars from this stuff. And to think that they're going to get away with that is just like, I don't want to live in that timeline. It sucks I don't want to hope for regulation, but at the same time, like how can you not hope for the justice to have like kind of come into that? They should have rescission on that. Like that actually they should get discouragement off all that money they made.
This is a key point. And yet again, it's like, who's got the Bitcoin, right? Like at the end of all this shit coining, somebody ends up with a bunch of Bitcoin. That's what always happens. That's what happened with EOS, right? Like the EOS Foundation basically delivered a bunch of vaporware. They're sitting on 130,000 Bitcoin. Like somebody, I don't believe those Bitcoin were sold at market. I think somebody has them, or a large portion.
What probably happened was like the Bitcoin was sold in an OTC trade with institution traders at the other end of the OTC trade. Most likely a lot of that Bitcoin just swapped into like the funds. Like Jump Capital was one of the people that were bailing out DeFi. Hashed lost $3.5 billion. So like they're an example of one of the VC crypto funds, though they were like allegedly like, like a tier 1 crypto fund, if you want to use that term. They were big in 2017. I used to like, I worked at Alphabet in 2017, so I used to actually do like deal flow, like conversations with a lot of these guys. I used to be in these different groups where the fund managers and stuff would be like doing due diligence on deals. And I remember Hashed was just making money hand over fist and all these like Korean ICOs and stuff. And they ended up losing 3.5 billion on Luna. So like even in that big world of billions, hundreds of millions and billions of dollars, even they will make the same mistakes as some noob coming in getting wrecked on some DeFi Ponzi or meme coin. Eventually, like you think you're so smart, you're going to make a bunch of money. Then like Kyle Samani now is apparently some kind of trader fund manager god, and he still thinks that like he's still putting out stupid threads like calling the top of Solana when it was like, or saying that was never the top, and just all this hopium that these guys put out there. They get lucky because it's a manipulated market. They get easy money because interest rates are low. They get access to credit. They take that money, they recreate the exact same thing that happened in Web 2, where they're the biggest, Silicon Valley VCs are propping up these markets and creating these conditions for massive returns. They get some of these guys, these tier one people get in, they make a bunch of money, and then they think they're smart, and like everybody starts to follow them because they think they're smart too, when really they're just as dumb as any other noob coming into the space. It's just we're in a bubble, and like it's just bubble logic.
Totally.
How do you guys?
We were in a bubble. I don't think we're in a bubble anymore. The bubble's popping. I think.
Market sentiment last spring just got absolutely insane. Like, the spring where, Elon was on SNL and, the top of Doge, and Cuban was saying all the stupid shit. It's wild how fast that shifts from like complete euphoria to like just desperation and death everywhere. Right. But how do you guys think about or decipher between, I think language matters, right? Like we've got experiments in crypto, and you've got people that are like basically trying to create startups. And I think a lot of people are really well-intentioned. And then you have people that are obvious charlatans and like obvious Ponzi's like BitConnect and stuff like that. How do you decipher which is like a legitimate attempt at building something and something that's just a clear scam or a clear Ponzi?
So there's this article by Michael Bitstein called "Everyone's a Scammer," and I think it's informed a lot of the discourse around Bitcoin and how Bitcoin maximalists interact with the larger crypto space. And like I've been hearing this feedback lately where people go, well, the Bitcoin maximalists, they just call everything a scam. Like, yeah, they called Terra Luna a scam, but they call everything a scam. Everything's a scam to them, right? And it's to your point, like, how do you differentiate? What I would say is I would soften the phrase "everyone's a scammer" with the phrase "no one is better than their incentives." No one. I'm not, you're not, Brad's not. So you have to ask yourself, what are the incentive mechanisms that are baked into this protocol? What are the incentive mechanisms of these founders? What are the incentive mechanisms of these market participants? And I think if you can think from first principles and ask yourself those kinds of questions, you will come to a much better understanding of what is real or is not real. I'm not going to give you a list of like what are real crypto projects or not, but I am going to tell you, like, you need to look at the incentive structure behind every single project, and then you'll draw your conclusions after that.
So don't trust what somebody tells you or what they're, when they're giving a PowerPoint, look at the incentives and say, well, if they were going to rug pull, or if they are trying to pull a fast one, like what does that look like? And basically have like an adversarial mindset.
Absolutely. 100%. Like this is a space where there's a phrase that the VCs use. The reason they like to play in this space is because of short time to liquidity. That is a VC phrase that means I'm about to dump on your ass, you stupid retail sack of shit. Like, I don't care, right? You're my exit liquidity, bitch. That's what they're saying when they say short time to liquidity. It means, listen, when we used to build Facebook or Twitter or whatever, we had to get locked in for 10 years and we were along for the ride and we were illiquid the whole time. Now we're not illiquid. And if we think the project is failing, we just bail on it. We cut bait and we walk away and we go on to the next thing. Right. So be very concerned about the short time to liquidity aspect of some of these VC backed projects. It doesn't matter if A16Z endorsed it. They still have the same broken incentives as everybody else. Right. Well, sometimes we like to talk shit about the Fed. Right. Like, but I think if you put any of us in Jerome Powell's seat, we would do the exact things that Jerome Powell is doing, because those are the incentives of that mechanism. And we're not better than that. Like, I'm not good enough to override those incentives, neither are you or anybody else, right? And so just ask yourself, what is driving the behavior here? And if you can ask yourself those questions, you're going to come to the end result pretty quickly.
Yeah, well said, Brad. Any thoughts?
Yeah, no, I like that, and I think there is definitely, to be fair, there's like straw manning on both sides. Like on the Bitcoin camp, there's a lot of like yellow belt maxis, as Big Mar likes to say. I love that term because the yellow belt maxis are the people that came in like at the bottom of like 2018 or whatever, and they like were just fed all this awesome uh information that was like forged with like diamond hands from people that were holding from 20,000 down, and they had all this great information to give, and then all these like people that maybe lost some money in shit coins were like, oh well, I'm gonna check out Bitcoin now. And I think a lot of people that came into Bitcoin Twitter are actually like left curvers that would just have fallen into BSV cult or Ripple cult or whatever cult. It's just they got lucky and found like Robert Breedlove or somebody instead to read their work instead of going and reading some other influencer's work. So there's definitely a fringe element of that, and they're very loud, and like they call scam on everything. So they really don't understand what a scam is, and like just like that doesn't help with discourse, because then that taints the perception of Bitcoiners from the crypto people who like just as many fringe dumb Bitcoiners as there are on the Bitcoin camp. There's the opposite, I think, with altruistic, well-intentioned people. Like I think the well-intentioned altruistic people are the fringe minority of crypto. Honestly, I think the majority of people in Bitcoin are like those financial activist minded people that like not trying to like grift and extract as much value as they possibly can from you. And the majority of the participants in crypto are those types of people. They get attracted over to that. But there is this fringe group of people that like maybe it's 2 or 3% of the people building projects on Ethereum are cypherpunks. Like they're actually legitimate cypherpunks, or they're just entrepreneurs that are kind of like misguided or don't understand what they're building and the incentives of the pre-mines and things like that. And I think it's good to talk to those folks, because this is kind of like relatively unknown, but in the last bull run, it attracted a whole bunch of builders to come in, and they some of them did ICOs, and some of them were trading shit coins, and some of them were starting crypto funds or whatever. And then as the bear market kind of like showed us like everybody was naked here and all these utility coins are valueless, and they're all like, the narrative of MV equals PQ and fat protocol thesis and all this crap the VCs were trying to feed everybody for a year and a half. It was all bullshit. And the token holders had no rights to the legal like leftover Bitcoin in the treasury of the company. Like token holders got totally fleeced, and everybody started realizing, wait, this is all bullshit. Bitcoin is where the value is. And most of the people that came into Bitcoin during the bear market, people that ended up becoming Bitcoin's best thinkers in 2020, 21, 22 were forged in getting destroyed in their, shit coining in 2017. And so like one of the great examples of that is Galloy Money. Nicholas Berti was the founder of an ICO in 2017, and he like realized in 2018 that actually Lightning Network is where that's the bleeding edge of crypto. Like building on the Lightning Network is the bleeding edge, and it's going to have the most impact on people's lives. It's like where he ethically spend most of his time. And he ended up abandoning his ICO dreams or whatever. He realized that was not the right path forward. He reconciled that. He started focusing on Lightning Network, and then he ended up building the Bitcoin Beach Wallet and supporting that whole project. And the Bitcoin Beach Wallet ended up becoming the impetus for El Salvador adopting Bitcoin as legal tender. So that you can trace that back to this one thing where this guy was excited by the shitcoining ICO thing, came in, did it, realized this is not the right thing I should be doing. I should go over here and focus on Bitcoin. And boom, El Salvador adopts Bitcoin, and it becomes one of the biggest, strongest network effects for Bitcoin as money in the developing world. So I think like I'm super excited for the next few years, even though this bear market sucks. It's like, they say, what is it? You can't have diamonds without pressure. So like there is like this pressure of the bear market is making people challenge all these stupid narratives they've been being force fed by the VCs and some people in Wall Street, and people like Real Vision, like Raoul Pal and Remy getting rugged on Terra Luna. A lot of people that were like smart macro thinkers went in and just threw a .eth at the end of their name and started analyzing DeFi, because I guess if Raoul Pal and Real Vision are behind it, then yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I should start doing it. So now I think this bear market is actually good. It's going to like pull all the pants down of all these people. The tide's going to come out and they're going to say, wait a second, there's nothing there. There's nothing there. And then some of them are going to make their way over to Bitcoin.
Yeah, but I think I've seen you've been tweeting about that recently, right? Like bear markets create Bitcoin maximalists. Once you understand that like every implosion cycle, most of the bullshit goes away, and then people realize what's left is the Bitcoin foundation of sound money. And yeah, sometimes you have stuff that sticks around for a long time, but most of the stuff is going to fail and die and go away over time.
Totally. Like Coinbase had a top 10 recommended coins or something, a couple months back, like 6-8 months back. Since they recommended those coins to their users, the average is down 37% against Bitcoin. Right. Wow. So it's like, damn. I mean, everybody has perverse incentives in this space. And like, the truth is that, the best way to build an economic machine that flows more Bitcoin to you is to do a shitcoin scam, unfortunately. That's not always going to be the case, though. And, eventually that's going to stop working. And the most profitable way to, build an economic machine that, brings Bitcoin to you is going to be to build on top of Lightning or to do things that actually matter in the world. And like, we're seeing that happen now, and it's very exciting. So like, there is I think everybody who's been around, like Chris, you probably have this feeling too. Like if you've been around long enough, that one day alt season is not going to come. Like one day it's going to be over, but we don't know when that is. Is it next cycle? Is it the cycle after? Is it the cycle after that? We don't know. Right. Yeah.
I think there will always be people trying to develop and trying to get rich and launch stuff either legitimately or in a scammy way. But yeah, I mean, after the 2017-18 implosion, I was like, okay, alts are dead. ICOs are dead. And then like when Ethereum started waking up and it got back up above 300 and the DeFi shit, I'm like, oh wait, there's another narrative here. It's NFTs, it's DeFi, right? So I don't know. Like maybe the next cycle, there'll be another wave of bullshit that happens, and maybe some of it will be legitimate, or maybe people will just tend to focus on Bitcoin. But I don't know. I am excited though for like the adoption and the fundamentals of Bitcoin. I know a lot of people, the number one question I actually tweeted out, I was like, what questions do you guys have for, the interview I'm going to do today? And it was like, most people just want to know, where's the bottom? When do I buy? Right. Shit like that. People just want you to hand them on a silver platter, like when to buy, when to sell, how to get rich quick. Right. But if we can zoom out from price for a minute and just assume that, Bitcoin's going to keep trucking along, what I'm most excited about is the adoption at sovereign levels, right? Like, I don't think retail is going to drive the next cycle. It's got to be bigger. It's got to be, governments, right? So what do you guys think of that? Like, what do you think is going to drive the next cycle? And what do you think is like the most important thing happening in Bitcoin right now?
Interesting. Yeah, I think the Lightning Network is the most important thing that's happening in Bitcoin right now, because I mean, all this FUD that we've been hearing for years and years about Bitcoin's not fast, Bitcoin's not efficient. I mean, these people have clearly never used the Lightning Network. When you use it, it's a game changer. We already have the first unicorn that's been built on top of it, which is, Strike, what Jack Mallers has done to Strike. And like, there are many more unicorns coming. David Marcus, who was doing the Facebook Libra project, has, abandoned all that. And he's now doing a Lightning focused startup. And so like, there's just a lot of energy heading in that direction. There are big funds investing in that space. And like, there are really interesting new technologies and things that it enables, et cetera, et cetera. And so, yeah, I'm really bullish on Bitcoin as medium of exchange. And I'm really bullish on, like what you said, Chris, which is further nation state level adoption, corporate adoption, sovereign wealth fund adoption, pension adoption, hedge fund adoption, et cetera. Like we've been, the meme, the institutions are coming, has been around since 2013 when you first entered. And I think this year, or probably 2020, it finally became true. Like the institutions actually came, but all they did was dip a toe in the water. We have like less than 1% institutional adoption currently. So we don't even really need a central bank to start stacking in earnest yet. We still have the institutions are going to take us to the next order of magnitude up. And, I think all of us remain extremely long-term bullish on the price of Bitcoin. Like, for the audience members who want to know where the bottom is, I'll give you I think 25 was bottom. Brad is more bearish than I am. We might sweep 25 again, and that might be an opportunity.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm going to call 25 as bottom. And
25K.
Brad, you can give your bottom prediction at the end too.
Yeah, go for it.
So Chris, I just sent you a DM on Twitter. Do you want to bring that up?
Sure.
Show the chart. I was working on this couple of charts yesterday and the day before. I finally got my hands on a TradingView account, so I started playing around with it.
Nice.
You can click the link and it brings up the TradingView if you want.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I finally got my hands on trading.
I finally got my hands on a TradingView account.
Awesome,
so this
man.
is
Welcome to the club.
This is what I was thinking about. And HODL, by the way, like everything you just said, I completely agree with. And this is why I wanted to show this chart, because like Bitcoin's narrative has never changed. And if you go back to the tweet, you can see at the bottom, like scroll down, I made one for Bitcoin too. So that I made one for Ethereum, and then at the bottom I tweeted
Right
one
here.
for Bitcoin. Yeah. Like Bitcoin's narrative is money. Bitcoin is money. Bitcoin is a store of value. It's a decentralized peer-to-peer cash system. It's a protocol for transferring value in a decentralized way, an open source way, an open system of transferring money. It's always been about money. Like Bitcoin has always been about decentralization, government resistance, censorship resistant cash, free speech money, store of value. It's never changed. Ethereum always needs new narratives. So the ICO bubble made Ethereum have this massive run up in 2017 because it was like, oh, well, this is we're programmable venture capital, disrupting venture capital, utility coins, MV equals PQ. Like they came up with all these narratives, and that actually accrued significant value to the Ethereum asset and the crypto markets in general because of this flawed logic that like utility derives value in the other coins. And then that got completely eroded in 2000, bear market of 2018, 19, when we realized like, oh, that was stupid. Like that was dumb. That's not actually what gives them value. Bitcoin has value because it's money. And then you go back to the Bitcoin one, and it's the bear market was there because it was like, unfortunately, a lot of the value of Bitcoin, you get a lot of market participants in these bull markets that buy Bitcoin because they're like, oh, well, it's Bitcoin and crypto. So they go into crypto, they have some Bitcoin. They're like, yeah, we love Bitcoin. Bitcoin's money. We have digital gold. We like that, but it's boomer coin. So we're going to go because blah, blah, blah narrative. And all these people that come in, they lower the financial IQ and the hand strength of the Bitcoin holder base gets weaker when you get all these participants that don't understand what they bought in just FOMOing up the price. So in all the different cycles, Bitcoin's lost value when it's basically like the reconciliation of the previous narrative of crypto. People realized that was stupid. So DeFi, NFTs, and all that added significant value to Ethereum's market cap this year. They had to have a new narrative. They got the new narrative. It gained significant value, but like it's already popped. And it was elongated by the double bubble they had of DeFi and NFTs, and then the meme coins as well. It was just like nonsense, just like in the traditional markets with meme stocks. So I think Ethereum's going to lose 90% of its value from the top of 4,800 as we realize that, yeah, maybe having a $200,000 JPEG isn't a smart financial decision, and maybe having an ICO rebranded to a yield farm Ponzi scheme is not a smart financial decision. It's still an illegal security. There's still policy risk. It's still 100x overvalued. So like, I think Ethereum is going to lose a lot of its market share, and so is the rest of crypto. And unfortunately, because you have people like Terra Luna buying 30,000 Bitcoins to try to sustain their Ponzi scheme, and you have a lot of these people that came in thinking JPEGs were valuable and that DeFi utility coins were valuable, they're going to be like selling their Bitcoin. And I think it's going to be like a mixture of what I'm just laying out now and what HODL is talking about and what you're talking about, Chris. More and more people are going to still realize Bitcoin is money. So as these narratives for crypto change, it's like, what is it? Is it programmable money? Is it a mutable smart contract? Is it DeFi? Is it ICOs? Is it NFTs? Is it dApps? Is it GameFi? Is they all need some kind of new narrative to make the bubble happen, and then it just evaporates as people realize this is all bullshit. Why do you need a blockchain? You need a blockchain because it's decentralized money. It's store of value, and it needs to have long-term credible monetary policy like Bitcoin. It needs to be decentralized and resistant to governments like Bitcoin. Nothing else is like Bitcoin. So I don't think anything is going to drive the next bubble except more and more people just continuing to realize that Bitcoin is money. And that's why I'm actually kind of excited. It sucks to see my net worth dropping like this, but I'm excited to see like a repeat of what happened in the last bear market. Was we got more people like HODL and like coming out and like being influencers to like propagate sound Bitcoin knowledge. So like Michael Saylor came out of the freaking 2018 bear market. Like Michael Saylor, more Michael Saylors, more HODLs, more Breedloves. Like that's what's actually pretty exciting about unfortunately getting my net worth nuked. Like on the other side of this, like whatever the bottom is, maybe it's 25K, maybe it's 20K, whatever it is, think about it in 5 to 10 year time frames, and Bitcoin is just still going to be marching on towards global reserve monetary asset.
Yeah, man, I don't know. I'm so like just immune to price drops now. Like, I don't know. I guess I'm just a salty old bastard that like price drops. I'm excited for, right? I reframed it from like a negative thing of like, oh man, I'm sad my net worth's going down, to like, oh, this is another buy opportunity. This is another time that I can actually build my position size even larger than I thought I could. So I think it's all about framing. But, you know, as far as like price predictions, because I know this is what everybody really wants, I don't know, but I've started scaling in here, but I'd be really excited if we got back below, 15 to 12K. If we did a full retracement of the prior bull cycle, that's where I'd get really excited and, start selling my soul to buy even more.
Let me ask you this question, Chris. Like, do you think cycle theory was murdered in the past 2 years, or do you think cycle theory stands?
Oh man. I mean, it's in a way it's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Mm-hmm.
So it works because of that, but also, and kind of the counterpoint there is it becomes a crowded trade, right? Like everybody had the laser eyes and was so focused on 100K that became a crowded trade. And that's why we got that second bull trap at 69K. It was like, it just got too overheated and everybody was focused on stock to flow and, was convinced that was going to happen. And that's why I think the market is punishing the way it is. In addition, obviously, to like crypto imploding, which is definitely putting bear pressure on the price, but it works, right? Like narratives and self-fulfilling prophecies kind of work, but only over like long periods of time, because the market's going to trap and punish people that have like stops set too tight and stuff like that. So I don't know. What do you think?
I think it's dead. And I'll tell you my reason why. And I used to be a very strong proponent of it. I think we saw the stock to flow model just off a cliff, right? Like, which was always, it was always a meme model or whatever anyway, but like, it's totally been discredited now. And I think for me, it's like
stock to flow was the Citadel meme, but for institutional investors.
Exactly. We didn't get the parabola, right?
Yeah.
And so without the parabola, I don't think it stands to reason that you get the 90% drawdown. You know what I mean? So that's why I feel fairly confident calling 25K as bottom. Now, this is a video that, people can pull it back up and make me look like an idiot if we're at 18K, like, which I'm fine with. Like, that's okay. But I don't know. I'm not seeing what we used to have. I think it's different now because of the size of this asset class. And I think, we're much more macro dependent than people in Bitcoin and crypto want to think. And we tend to be really myopic because for a lot of us young guys, this was our first major financial market. And so we know it inside and out, but we don't know macro that well. We kind of have some vague ideas about macro, but we're not really sure what the headwinds are and what's, so I think we're much more dependent on macro factors than we have been in the past. And that's what is driving us. And I think cycle theory is, just sort of a dead meme at this point.
Yeah. I think as of right now, the bigger narrative that is absolutely driving price is the stock market. I hate to say it, but I mean, Bitcoin's price has been lockstep with the NASDAQ. And, you know, as of right now, it's still a risk asset. And I mean, it's just been following so damn closely. Granted, it's as of today, it's holding up while stocks made a lower low. But I mean, the tracking has just been uncanny, and that's not necessarily a good thing. Like, I want to wake up and be able to run data that shows that Bitcoin is moving independent of the stock market. But like, I use this analogy that, you know, if the crypto party is like a rave and all the altcoins are the, you know, the people high on drugs, and Bitcoin is the DJ, right? It determines when the music stops. Well, the NASDAQ is the fire marshal that determines when the party's over, and the Fed is like the mayor who decides if the party goes on, because Bitcoin
I
was
love it.
born at the bottom of the GFC, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Bitcoin's only known a bull market in stocks, and so this is yet to be seen, and I think this will be the bigger test for Bitcoin.
Yeah, so I think like I have this sort of fundamental, like my base case is that the stock market is a national security priority, and that they cannot throw us into a Great Depression or a Great Recession again. And I think the Fed is playing with fire at the moment, and they're trying to, basically they're creating demand destruction. They're trying to destroy some of the wealth effect, to create more productivity in the economy. And like, you can only push and pull on that so far before you break something. And so like, we are at risk of them breaking something, but like, I also think that, there's going to be a hard pivot in the opposite direction, and there will be more monetary stimulus in our immediate future. There's a paper I would point everybody to towards. It's called The Great Monetary Inflation. It's by Paul Tudor Jones, and it basically outlines that we're going to have this increasing amount of monetary stimulus. These ideas are all over the place. Like Jeff Booth talks about this in The Price of Tomorrow. That basically, like, there's going to be an ever increasing amount of monetary stimulus, and hard assets are going to perform the best in that environment. And in the paper, Paul Tudor Jones, Wall Street legend, billionaire guy, he ranks Bitcoin as the fastest horse in that race. And I agree with him. I think Bitcoin is the fastest horse in the macro backdrop. And I agree with what you said, Chris, that like I view shitcoins like Bitcoin derivatives. Like shitcoins are Bitcoin CDOs. You know what I mean? Like yeah, exactly. Synthetic CDOs, CDO squared. Like they're just like absolute pieces
CPOs,
of shit. Yeah,
collateralized Ponzi obligations.
Right. Extremely high beta. And like if you want to do it, but know that you're in like the riskiest environment of all time,
Yeah.
HODL, you also talk on Clubhouse sometimes about like the, kind of going back to what I was saying about the bear markets building Bitcoiners. Like bear markets do create a lot of Bitcoiners, and then Bitcoiners create bull markets, and then bull markets create shitcoiners, and shitcoiners create bear markets.
It's the
And
hard
it just
man
loops around and around.
Yeah.
But every time that cycle happens, it creates a stronger hodler base, and it creates more conviction. And I think because one of the reasons why I'm not having much back pain this like crash is because of things like Clubhouse and using, like we talked about, weaponizing my activity bias towards helping like further Bitcoin adoption, rather than just sitting there on Twitter doom scrolling and being like, oh no. So that helps, but also being able to like go on Clubhouse and chat with all of our friends on Clubhouse, some of the Bitcoiners that like we're all kind of like working through the macro stuff, and having those conversations has been super helpful. But you often talk about like the conversation, I think that like was Stan Druckenmiller had with Paul Tudor Jones or something about like his decision to buy Bitcoin.
Stan Druckenmiller called up Paul Tudor Jones. They're both Wall Street legends and shit. And he basically goes, do you know that when this thing went from 20K to 3K, that 87% of people held onto it? So you have an asset that's gold-like, but that increases, builds on top of all of gold's flaws, that is interesting to the new generation in a way that gold is not. And the hodler base are religious zealots. That was basically the quote he gave to Paul Tudor Jones. And it's true. It's like, listen, I've said this before, like Bitcoin for me ends with a zero. Like either fiat is going to be worth zero or Bitcoin is going to be worth zero. But either way, I'm riding this thing into the fucking rocks. You know what I mean? And I'm either going to be poor as fuck or rich as fuck. There is no in between for me. Okay.
Oh man, you got thicker skin than I do, man. I don't know. I think you could do both, right? I think you could get rich as fuck with Bitcoin, but also like if it goes to zero, not be destitute. I don't know.
Right.
Maybe I just need to man up more and just be like, fuck it, I'm selling everything else. I'm just gonna only have Bitcoin.
Either I've evolved beyond where Chris is right now, or Chris has evolved beyond where I was 3 years ago. It's one or the other, because like I've like given up on the idea of like trying to time it and trying to like be I've given up on like trying to balance my cash position, all that shit. But it may be also because I am like, I'm Canadian, right? So we had this freaking like emergency act thing happen recently that did scare the shit out of a lot of Bitcoiners and entrepreneurs that just not even Bitcoiners. The fact that you can have a government seize bank accounts and threaten to seize bank accounts based on what you posted on Twitter or so a donation that you gave to a political thing, that's insane. So like it's a little different for me maybe because I imagine like if you're a Russian millionaire right now or something like that, and you're like, I don't want to be sitting in cash. Like I need some Bitcoin because that's the only thing that's censorship resistant. And to that last point as well, like the only thing we know going forward, whatever policy decision the Fed makes, if they let us go into a Great Depression or if they have to hard pivot and print 10-20 trillion dollars to rescue the markets, whatever ends up happening, it's 99% certainty that there's going to be more censorship, more control over your money, more power grabbing, and eventually it could lead to like straight up Chinese style social credit scores and digital CBDCs. So like Bitcoin is just going to be more and more important as we go on in this environment, because either way it's going to end with it. Well, if we get sanity back into like government policy and stuff, maybe it won't end in a populist uprising, but it's either gonna, it looks like it's trending towards at some point unrest and globally everywhere. There's like freaking Sri Lanka right now is a perfect example of what happens when food shortages start and like they don't have enough gas, that everything's too expensive, and like people are, what is that quote, like people are only a few days away from like turning into zombie mobs. That's not the
Oh
quote,
yeah.
but it's kind of true. Like if they don't do something about it, it's gonna turn chaos. It's gonna turn into chaos. If they do something about it, it's gonna just kick the can down the road again. And eventually there's going to be more and more control over your life. The government's going to have to try to grab more and more control of your life because it's going to eventually get out of control if they just keep printing money to stop these problems. So Bitcoin just isn't going to be, it's going to be increasingly more and more relevant in this world where people are losing trust in their institutions, losing trust in banks in Canada, and in all Russians are losing trust in banks everywhere because they're targeted right now. You lose trust in the news, you lose trust in the president, you lose trust, everybody's losing trust in all authorities. And Bitcoin is the perfect money and the perfect collateral for a post-trust world, whether it's you and your like bread, egg guy or whatever, or one central bank and another central bank. It's the same cost to run a node and validate the transaction. Anybody can do it. And that makes Bitcoin the network, the perfect post-trust monetary network, and Bitcoin the asset, the perfect collateral for a post-trust world. So hopefully the Fed doesn't screw things up and send us into a depression. But like either way, Bitcoin is going to be more and more important, I think, as time goes on. And maybe that's why I'm okay with taking some of that. Like I'm doing the barbell strategy a little bit. Like I do have some cash set aside to buy the dip if it comes, but I got a pretty small barbell. I'm not benching like you or HODL. I got like a little barbell here with a bunch of Bitcoin on one side and a tiny bit of cash on the other side. I'm going to use that cash. It just makes me feel good. If the drop happens, I'm going to buy up the Bitcoin.
Listen, this is my barbell is Bitcoin, and then on this side I got guns, whiskey, ammo, and prescription pills.
Nice. Well, ammo's outperformed everything over the past couple of years, so that's a good investment.
Because either, in my opinion, we are going into what Brad described, and that entire system is going to come crumbling down on itself at some point, and we're all going to live very terrible lives. Which, if that is the case, sure, plan for that eventuality, but don't stew on it all day long. And then, or we're moving into the Jetson style future where Bitcoin is the, engine of innovation that kickstarts global GDP, and suddenly okay, this is something I talked with my buddy Rob Hamilton about, who's a Bitcoin founder. Basically, if Bitcoin just makes the world 2% better, 2% better per year compounded over the course of 20 or 30 years, suddenly we're in a much different environment than we found ourselves in originally, right? And you have to think to yourself, well, what if fiat makes the world 2%? 2% is the stated inflation goal. What if fiat makes the world 2% worse every year? Well, since 1971, we're 50 some odd years on. I think that we can see what the compounded effects have become, right? And so for me, that's the big thing that's at the heart of Bitcoin, and why I'm willing to seed it with not only all of my capital, but all of my time, and just put my entire life's work and energy into it, because I'm really excited about, the future, that Bitcoin can bring for humanity. Just by all Bitcoin has to do is decrease malinvestment. If it just decreases malinvestment and we get capital going in the right place, because basically every dollar that bounces around the world creates distortions, and then all the other fiat currencies are derivatives of that distortion. They create even greater distortions. Bitcoin is signal clearing. Basically, it's like pure signal bouncing across the world, pure economic signal. Because if you miscalculate in Bitcoin, guess what? There's no bailout for you, right? Your Bitcoins are going to flow away from you, and they're not so easily going to come back to you. So people who are bad capital allocators in a Bitcoin system get punished. People who are bad capital allocators in our current system get rewarded. It's ass backwards. And so just decreasing malinvestment and getting innovation back on track, that's the key to an abundant future. And, it's either that or we're taking on the zombie hordes with the AR-15. Those are the only two.
I'm an optimist, right? Because if things go to shit, who cares anyways? So why not be an optimist? And I like that idea of if Bitcoin can improve the world, just a few points a year, what does that look like? And
yeah, that's a cool framework.
Yeah, when I look at what happened to you guys in Canada and how they, whether you believe the trucker thing was cool or not, you should not be for financial censorship. And I don't know, I think about the fight that's about to heat up with CBDCs and fiat and then Bitcoin, right? And I just think that Bitcoin is the ultimate fuck you to authoritarian governments. I had an American friend who had been living in Myanmar for a long time. And when the coup happened, he was screwed. His bank accounts were locked up and all that. And I sent him some Bitcoin, and there was a local, peer-to-peer transactor. So he was able to get fiat in, what's it called? Burmese chat, I think it's called. He was able to take the Bitcoin, go down the street, give the guy the Bitcoin. He got chat, was able to buy flights, get his team out of there. Right. So I love those examples of real world shit where Bitcoin literally saves lives or gets people out of really bad situations. I think I want to try to do a better job at highlighting stuff like that and maybe doing interviews or I don't know if you guys know anybody who's doing that type of work or helping people get out of really bad situations. I think if we shine a spotlight on that, could pull a lot of the crypto get rich quick people over and be like, oh, this is what it's really about.
You know Gladstein, right? Alex Gladstein.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we should, Brad, you should set that up, because the Human Rights Foundation, who Gladstein works for, is doing more of this than anybody. And it's great to see, because it's look at the Russia-Ukraine conflict. You can find Bitcoin on both sides of that conflict, which not only shows, I think, how useful Bitcoin is, but it also shows that Bitcoin is now a major player in the world, that there are global conflicts that Bitcoin is on both sides of, right?
Yeah. Do you guys think that CBDCs are going to be a thing, or are they going to just peter out and not be able to compete?
No, we're gonna live with CBDCs. They're absolutely going to be a thing. Your dollars are already basically digital anyway, so it's not that big of a jump for them. I do think that eventually the stablecoin market will be controlled by the big banks, with Treasury as their proxy. And that's how we're going to see these things. There's going to be a lot. If you've read the eCash Act, there's a lot of lip service to privacy, but then there's a lot of weasel words where they can totally undo your privacy. And basically, they're going to try and trap us in a central bank digital currency system, because it enables them to do the move from Ferris Bueller's Day Off, where they take the Ferrari out all day. That's economic stimulus, and they have a great time. and then they run it in reverse because they can steal from you more easily if you're trapped in their system.
Right.
And so we're all going to, take haircuts on things. We're all going to have negative interest rates. There's going to be bailouts all over the place. It allows them different levers to do modern monetary theory where they can, send money to this portion of society, but not this portion of society, et cetera. And so, yeah, it's a useful tool for authoritarian governments, and you're going to see them proliferate. And luckily in America, at least, we have a voice in pushing back against it. And I think we should be really, really active in that arena to make sure that the CBDC doesn't become something that we don't want it to be. But ultimately, like, UBI is an inevitability at this point, and that's the reason the vast majority of people will accept central bank digital currencies, because they're going to be gifted free money.
Right. Yeah. China's already done that. Right. And, most people will be like, I don't care what kind of money it is. If it buys me shit and the government gives it to me for free. Yeah. Yep. I don't care. I know I'm giving away my freedom in a way, but yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't have much of a thought out position on CBDCs. Honestly, I'm just don't follow it as much as other folks. Maybe because we're not talking about it as much in Canada. It wasn't like, the government's not really talking about it too much. Most of that action's been in the US, right? With those different proposals that the US has done. I'm sure. Yeah. China, obviously they're going to do it, but I'm sure we'll just follow whatever the States does. We're basically, we're either just following what the States does, or we're a petri dish for the United States where they'll let's see what happens when you raise interest rates. Do in Canada first, and then they'll go, oh, the housing market didn't blow up. All right, let's do it over here. And we're a petri dish, or we're just following along. It's kind of silly.
Oh man. All right. I got a couple of questions on Twitter. Maybe we can hit some of these.
Sure.
Somebody was asking, is it actually possible to have a decentralized algorithmic stablecoin? How can they defend against whales that play the long game to manipulate price? I don't know. Do you guys have any strong opinions on stables, if it can work or not?
I don't think it is possible to have a decentralized algorithmic stablecoin that has long-term value proposition. I think you have to have a central governing body or a trusted third party ensuring the peg. And if you don't, people will gamify it and it'll go to zero. I mean, it's pretty spectacular that Terra Luna went to zero, because usually shitcoins, slowly trend to zero over time. This one just blew up right in the face of everybody, which was crazy. I've never seen something quite like it before. So no, you have to have a central governing body backing the peg.
Yeah,
I actually think it's possible to do it in a way that's conservative, but it's more like the CDP model, like MakerDAO type of model, but you do it on a Bitcoin only basis, where it's just collateralized by Bitcoin at 5x over collateralization or something like that. And then it mints a Bitcoin native US, BUSD or whatever you want to call it, like SAT USD or something like that, that is pegged to or targets $1 based on Oracle prices or something like that. And Tether's actually working on that. They've got this thing that they're building called the Omni Bolt layer, which is going to be a Lightning Network Oracle for algorithmic stablecoins. I think it's possible. The reason why UST blew up was because it was literally a Ponzi scam. Like, people say, I was in a Twitter Spaces probably a week ago, and I mean, this was like a crypto Twitter Spaces, because they were just coping hard. They were like, the Citadel did it to us. Like the bankers don't want us to have decentralized money and all this shit. And I was like, guys, it was literally a Ponzi scam.
Ponzi scheme, yeah.
And they're like, you're just a maxi.
Understand the mechanics,
you're a maxi. You're using toxic language. I'm like, it's actually the dictionary definition of a Ponzi scheme. Like, you cannot get paid 20% for absolutely nothing and expect that's not going to blow up, because eventually it grows so big that the amount of money that has to get paid out is too great, and it blows the whole thing up. And then when people start to realize that they're not making money anymore, they pull all their money out, and if there's no door to get out of, the whole thing goes to zero. And that's what happened to it. So it can be done, but I like to think of it more like Bitcoin is the stable coin. Eventually it's going to be 1 million or 10 million a coin or whatever. And at that point, when it's a global reserve asset, a global reserve currency, sats are going to be the stable coin. So that's the other way we get to a stable coin with Bitcoin, is sats become worth $1 each.
That would be the ideal situation, wouldn't it? All right, next question. If governments were to regulate a big part of crypto, what regulations would be welcomed to the healthy growth of crypto, and what regulations would straight out hurt it? There, a lot of people don't realize there are already a lot of regulations around like fundraising and stuff, at least in the US, which is why a lot of the ICOs and shit that's launching today, they actually exclude US citizens.
No, sometimes.
Oh,
go ahead, Brad.
I was just going to say Celsius is a big one, right? Like Celsius is one of the other extremely risky Ponzi schemes that to be in right now. You should probably not be in Celsius, because Celsius is like flagrantly violating many laws, and they've been kicked out of the UK. They got fired by Prime Trust as their broker dealer because they were doing too much rehypothecation. They lost money with Fireblocks as a custodian. They lost money in Badger DAO. They barely escaped losing 500 million in Terra Luna. Like their CFO got arrested for fraud, for being part of a financial fraud. Like Celsius makes people sign Reg D forms when they buy OTC. They've been selling OTC to Americans for a long time. OTC, for people who don't know, is over the counter. They just, sell you large chunks of Celsius's shitcoin. So clearly they know it's a security. They wouldn't make you sign a Reg D form if they didn't think it was a security. So like the idea, like Celsius is down like 90% since last summer when I was warning people it was going to tank and go to zero. But like, I really think they should just make people sign a Rug D form and just get it over with, because they're eventually going to get rugged anyways.
On the topic of like what regulations are harmful and what regulations are hurtful, I think honestly, like, this is probably an unpopular opinion, but I think having to register as a security is helpful to the space, because it will clear up a lot of things that are outright Ponzi schemes, right?
Yeah.
I think an example of something that would be hurtful would be like carbon taxes on proof of work mining. I think that's hurtful. Or I think clean block mining would be hurtful. There are a lot of, I think a wealth tax is harmful to crypto in general, both shitcoins and Bitcoin. I mean, this is something that's been proposed from the Elizabeth Warrens of the world, the AOCs of the world recently. And so, yeah, I mean, there are a lot of things that could potentially happen that could be draconian and really set the industry back. And hopefully we just remain politically active so that, a lot of the regulators just straight up don't understand what's happening. And we need to do a better job educating them,
I was really excited, a few years ago for like STOs, like security token offerings. I knew it wasn't like, a huge like revolution. It was more like evolutionary, but it seems like that's kind of fizzled out. I mean, I was really hoping that we were going to have a lot more tokenization of like different types of assets by now, but I guess people just wanted fucking JPEGs instead.
I've been saying that I think that the next shitcoin bubble is going to be based around identity. And I think that's a key part of the security token thing that's been missing up to this point. So like, I do think we're going to see a wave of security tokens next cycle, and there's going to be a wave of identity solutions next cycle. People will be very excited about.
Me and HODL have a stake bet on it. I'm not going to let you slip in security tokens into the identity bet. That doesn't count.
They're interconnected, Brad. They're interconnected.
No way. You can't have it. You can't have it.
Yeah,
I'm actually working, Chris, on actually getting security token stuff done. Like I've invested in Merge Exchange, which is an ATS licensed Seychelles exchange that does trade liquid tokens right now. And I've been working with Blockstream and like multiple different companies to try to actually get, and my buddy James Wallace has this company Digital, and I worked on him for hours, many hours, 2 years, 3 years, like in person on the phone, trying to convince him, like, look, Bitcoin, it's Bitcoin and security tokens. That's all it is. It's not Bitcoin, altcoins, and like, illegal securities, CBDCs, whatever. He's just as passionate about security tokens as like we are about Bitcoin. No, sorry, securities, not security tokens. So he was really passionate about digitizing securities, but he didn't understand the blockchain. He thought the blockchain was just a thing that like, you could digitize securities on. And it took him a while, but he eventually came to my like line of logic. I had to take him through all the different like scammy, like bad logic, grifty things that are happening in blockchain, because really there is no need for a token. If you're gonna like T0 doesn't need a token unless it's a security token. Like the security blockchains don't make a lot of sense. So that's why like Liquid Network makes great sense for that use case, because in the next 10 years, in the next decade, as the regulators do come in and there's less and less financial or regulatory arbitrage opportunity just to go print a shitcoin, make $2 billion and pay a $20 million fine and not go to jail. Like, obviously a bunch of people are going to do that. That's why we had the A16Z raising hundreds of billions of dollars, pumping it into DeFi securities. They're illegal security tokens, and they're mostly yield farming Ponzi schemes, but the regulators haven't acted yet. But I do think the way it's going to evolve is whether or not it's the market figures it out or the regulators force this, but digital securities make sense. And it will happen on something like Liquid Network, where there is no shitcoin, so there's no regulatory risk. Just like how BlockFi didn't get shut down by the SEC, they just got regulated by the SEC. And because they didn't have a BlockFi token that you could gamble on, they didn't get super scrutinized. Like Celsius, Nexo, Crypto.com, all these companies that are doing the same stuff BlockFi was doing are probably not going to get away with as easily as BlockFi did, because they've all got this other layer of things. So not just they're breaking one security law, they're breaking all the securities laws. So I think the Liquid Network and just doing it properly with no policy risk makes the most amount of sense if we're ever going to get there. But I mean, like, it's not sexy to buy, a tokenized real estate trust on a blockchain like that. That makes sense, like
Yeah.
we're not in a world where investments make sense. So we have to get to that, beyond that path. We have to get to that point where Bitcoin is growing the world at 2% a year, fixing malinvestment, like HODL was saying. Once we get into that paradigm, then it will make sense to have digital securities, because your money will be digital, and it won't be just like FOMO investing driven by the Fed's policies and easy money, artificially low interest rates. It'll be like logic. Like, we'll be back into value investing, and we'll be back into investing in things that make sense. And in that point, like, it'll make sense to have things digitally.
Well said. All right, let's do maybe one or two more questions. I know we've been going for like an hour and a half, so we can start to wrap this up. But somebody's asking about thoughts on Vitalik's proposal to insure cryptos like FDIC. I don't really know anything about that. You guys?
I didn't hear about that.
Okay.
I mean, I saw Vitalik was like criticizing Ethereum. There was a thread that he made where he was criticizing Ethereum. Is he maybe confused a little bit?
I mean, thinking through the FDIC thing, it's like, the way FDIC works is you just print more money and then you cover deposits. So
yeah,
I mean, if a shitcoin had the ability, which they all do, because they have active management teams, to just print more money, then sure, I guess you could technically say it's FDIC insured, but it'd be FDIC insured in your shitcoin. It wouldn't be in dollars. There's no way to do that.
Yeah, FDIC is a scam too. I used to think like FDIC was this
game, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a confidence game. Like, Warren Buffett has more money than the FDIC does.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Like literally, if the banks failed, they made the decisions that because some of the big banks in the GFC were going to fail, and they didn't have enough money to cover the failures in the FDIC, so they decided to just rebrand it as like, socializing it, taking over Fannie and Freddie, whatever. Like, when the shit really hit the fan, there wasn't enough money, but they didn't want it to look like, so they had to print money and bail out a bunch of banks. So really, the money printer is the FDIC insurance, like HODL said. Like, the FDIC is just, like you said, Chris, a confidence game.
Yeah.
I do think that Bitcoin insurance is an area in which I'm bullish. I think we're going to see more insurance plays in the Bitcoin and crypto industry going forward, because it doesn't make much sense that you have like maybe $1 million house and it's insured, and then like a $20 million Bitcoin position that's uninsured, right? Like, that doesn't make a lot of sense. So like, I think we'll see those kinds of products come to market soon too.
That'd be nice. Yeah. Have a little bit of, be able to sleep better at night.
Peace of mind, right? Like,
yeah.
I mean, those of us who, we do self-custody, we feel pretty good about it. We've gotten our skills up over the years at storing cryptographic secrets, but always in the back of your mind, you're like, did I fuck something up? Like,
yeah.
Did I do something?
It's scary sometimes.
Yeah. It's true.
HODL and I are investors in a Bitcoin insurance company. We'll keep you posted when they want to start being more public.
Brad,
Nice.
I was trying to show my bags, make it seem like I was impartial. Come on,
Pump
man.
'em.
Stop.
Come on, we got this short liquidity cycle. Let's go.
Yeah, it's a short time to liquidity. There's going to be insurance coin attached to it. You can buy in that pre-sale. We're going to mint some NFTs that you can prove you have the insurance. No, we're not.
Hey, will you
doing
guys
that.
give me equity if I do a YouTube video on it?
You know,
Yeah, we'll give you 50K worth of the coin.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah. We're just VCs on it, so we'll have to talk to the founder.
All right, last question. We can wrap it up. Are exchanges that offer high leverage, like 50x or 100x, bad for the long-term growth of Bitcoin?
This is a philosophical discussion. There was a discussion between Sam Bankman-Fried and Caitlin Long where she was taking the position that it is bad, and then he was taking the position that no, it's good because it increases, price discovery. I think that the problem with the high leverage longs, and by the way, the average amount of leverage on a exchange like BitMEX is 23x. That is fucking insane. That's insane that's the average, right? So anyway, I think that the problem with these high levered longs is the cascading liquidations, right? So like when you take out this level, boom, it triggers the next, boom, it triggers the next, boom, it triggers the next. And because, the price comes from the margin in Bitcoin, meaning there are only so many coins available for exchange, right? So it's not like you're trading on the value of all coins in the world. You're trading on the value of coins that are freely available at market at that time. It can cause a lot of volatility in the price. And I think that, it makes us seem like a much more immature asset class than we actually are. So maybe in that sense, it is bad. But in the same, I'm a free market guy. So it's like, fuck it. If you want to go 100x leverage and get licked within 10 seconds, be my guest. That's your decision. I don't care.
Yeah. It's one of those catch-22s, because as a trader, I love it because it increases volatility. I don't trade with that high of leverage, but I like that it exists because I profit when that waterfall of selling happens. I know how to identify it and take advantage of it. But most people that trade on leveraged exchanges lose, almost all of them. And I don't think people realize that. Everybody, has the gambler mindset and goes there and gets over leveraged and doesn't understand margin and how to protect yourself. And so I mean, look, what was it, 10 to 15 years ago, the Forex markets were huge, and everybody was launching Forex bullshit, and we saw what happened in those exchanges behind the scenes. A lot of the Forex brokers, because there wasn't a centralized exchanges, it was all the brokers were making their own order book. They were trading against their customers and stuff. So the same shit's happening in crypto. And that's why I say people should just stay away from the lower liquidity, lower volume futures exchanges. And if you have to trade them, do it on low leverage. You're not going to get rich quick. You're going to blow up. It's almost guaranteed.
You're getting hunted by whales. That's what's happening on those exchanges. And so it's just a really, really tough game to play, especially if you're the little guy. So, careful.
Yep. Brad, you going to start swinging size on massive leverage?
Yeah, there is an exchange, actually, Collider. It's a Lightning Network powered exchange. They allow you to do massive leverage, but it's on $50 bets. It's not like you're gonna put your whole portfolio, because it uses the Lightning Network, and there's a maximum size of liquidity that you can deposit into the account. So I still don't recommend people even use that, because it's basically just like pulling a slot machine.
Yeah.
And I actually was an LP in Adaptive Capital, and they blew up on BitMEX. So I lost some money when BitMEX got they got stop hunted. That's pretty much what HODL said is what happened on BitMEX. They got liquidated. I think BitMEX is a bucket shop. At least they were. They're not doing it so much anymore. But they basically hunted Adaptive's position, or some market maker.
By the way, Chris, do you remember the Adaptive story? Were you following that at the time?
Not closely. I remember seeing headlines and stuff, but it basically imploded, right?
Yeah, I think it's instructive, and I'll just go through it real quickly for anybody who doesn't know it. But it was being run by this guy Murad Mohammadov, who was considered one of the smartest guys in the room, incredibly smart, young kid. They had all the, they had all the right people in, they had all the right strategies, that all that kind of stuff, and they blew up in the March 12th correction because no one saw that coming. No one, right? But
I did.
Okay, Brad.
I just sold the bottom. That's all.
Sold the bottom. Yeah.
And got liquidated in LP.
I think it's just very instructive because these guys essentially blew up like at the finish line. They fumbled at the goal line right before, you know, the big bull market. And, you know, that fund size would have been, you know, low 9 figures probably at this point, but instead it's zero. And the reason why is because they were over levered and they hadn't planned for unknown unknowns. And, you know, when you're hodling, these things don't happen to you. Right. So like for me, yeah, I took a serious punch in the dick on March 12th, you know, and I remember having a whiskey and I came inside and I told my wife, we're about to get stupidly rich. Like that's what's going to happen next, because I knew the response that the Fed was going to create to the events that had just unfolded. And I just think, like, if you're not putting yourself in a position, if you're not building for redundancy, if you're not covering your downside, you're just purely gambling. And I don't care how smart you are or who's in your fund or what type of names are associated. Like, you're being a degen for sure.
Yep,
Cover
absolutely.
your downside. You know?
Nobody's immune, man. I mean, how many fall from graces have we seen in this space, right?
So
I mean,
many.
I come from the futures market, so I've seen massive disasters. I mean, I was doing this shit in high school, and just to see the egos and the dick measuring contests and all this stuff that happens in crypto, and it's usually the people with the biggest egos that fall the furthest.
Yep.
Well, that Do Kwon guy, man, he was posting some like seriously egotistical, toxic shit to like his own investors, right? Like, you know, the only other guy in crypto right now, I think that's as bad as him is Richard Hart with Hex. Like,
Yeah.
he's probably.
Well, it's like, stay humble and stack sats, you know, like,
Yeah.
you got to know, like, listen, I called 25K at bottom, fully prepared to look like a total moron for that call. Fully prepared, you know?
Yeah, that's all right. You know, as long as you have skin in the game, right? Like,
right, yeah.
people that are like throwing predictions or talk shit about Bitcoin, I'm like, short it. Or
Right,
you know, like,
right.
if you put a position on, I respect it. If you are just blabbing, it's like, go away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What, Chris, what was the like craziest thing you think happened this cycle that you didn't see coming?
Man, I mean, obviously the Luna implosion is probably the most extreme example of just people losing their ass so fast. I think that's probably what caught a lot of people off guard and what cost people the most amount of money. Outside of that, the craziest thing that happened, I mean, I guess something I was disappointed in is like seeing like Elon and, you know, guys like Mark Cuban, like pumping Doge and shit like that. Like, that to me was just disgusting.
Yeah.
I don't know. What about you guys? I guess those are kind of the things that stick out. What about y'all?
I would say, you know, I knew about Bored Ape Yacht Club in the very, very beginning. Very beginning, I had a friend who was like, dude, Bored Ape Yacht Club, this is amazing. And I was like, monkey pictures, pass, hard pass, you know. And, you know, it went to like $500,000 for a monkey picture. And I could have never seen that coming, or the cultural phenomenon that it became, or NFTs in general. You know what I mean? I mean, to me, it was crazy that NFTs took off, because I actually, you know, have a fundamental understanding of how the technology works. And I was like, yeah, you don't actually own shit. All you have is you have a receipt that points to a picture of a monkey, right? Like, I mean, what, people are willing to pay $500,000 for that? I could have never seen that coming, you know?
Yeah, look, I think NFTs are fun and it's cool and whatever, but like, as an investor, like, I don't know, man. I mean, they've just gotten crushed, and I don't know. This is just another example of like the madness of crowds, like how people will throw hundreds of thousands of dollars at a JPEG. I just don't get it.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think the craziest thing that happened this cycle was like pretty much a combination of what you two just said. It was just crazy seeing Elon Musk shill Dogecoin, to see that guy be such a genius and so smart in all these other areas, and like working for like something like meaningful, like getting Starlink to like help people in research facilities in Antarctica to get the internet, and like help all these people in rural America, whatever. Like that, seeing him work on all that stuff, but then just be so clueless about Bitcoin, and not just be like, oh, it would be funny if Doge was the currency of the world, but like to actually be engaging with the Dogecoin people in a serious way and being like, yeah, we should just raise the block size 100x, like having the same stupid conversations we already went through this, you know?
Yeah, guys, we've been there. That's old
Yeah,
news. You
we
know?
solved that problem. The Lightning
Yeah.
Network exists. So seeing that happen and then seeing the JPEGs go like wild. I mean, I was into JPEGs back in the Rare Pepe days, so I kind of understood the idea of digital collectibles and stuff like that, but I never thought that we would get to this point where literally like all the major influential celebrities you could think of were doing JPEGs.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's the craziest thing. Like, I think we're gonna look back in history at this and see like this was the stupidest thing the dumbest bubble, the digital decadence. Perfect, HODL. It's the digital decadence bubble of just nothing. You're like, it's literally like what the WEF says. You will own nothing. You'll have no privacy, and you'll be happy about it. Like, you're literally owning nothing.
Yeah,
and you're so happy about it. And it's
there
on the
always seems to
Ethereum
be like
blockchain. You put a
in like the Gary V like hustle world, there always seems to be a flavor of the year, like the latest biz op, right? One year it's drop shipping, next year it's garage sales, which by the way I think is actually a good idea if you're dead fucking broke. But this year it was like NFTs, and you had all these like little solopreneurs launching their own JPEGs. And basically, like I saw so many videos of guys that they had like a following, like they're in the health space or the dating space or whatever, right? They have a little audience, and they're like, guys, we just launched this NFT. And then you hear the way that they sell them on their live streams. It's like they're using like securities talk of like, oh yeah, the guys that went out and they bought on day one, they're already up 50%. You should go out and buy too. And they don't know what they're doing, I don't think, in a lot of cases, but they're pumping shit. Like, they're promoting it as a security.
They literally put on the website on some of these things a good investment. You're gonna make money. Like, I've literally seen them where it says 10x your investment. Buy our NFT.
I knew we were at peak NFT when I was just at like the local diner that's close to my house, just like a regular place people go to get eggs. It's $20 for breakfast. And I'm sitting with my wife having omelets or whatever, and the guy next to me is bragging to the girl he's with about his NFT drop or whatever. And I was like, oh no, this is. And you know what's crazy, man, is like, Chris, you probably had this experience. Like, when I was new in Bitcoin, like end of 2014, early 2015, when I first got in, I started like telling people about it, and I was so excited I couldn't shut up, and I just told everybody, and I was like the crazy guy in the bar parking lot, like screaming about the Federal Reserve, and I was what I mean, like all that kind of stuff, right? And everybody told me I was stupid, I was a moron, I was an idiot, this and that, yada yada. And then what's funny is, fast forward to today, it's the same people who are now all in on pictures of monkeys or Terra Luna or this shitcoin or that shitcoin, who are also telling me I'm stupid. You're all boomer tech, Bitcoin's old, it's slow, doesn't make any sense, it's inefficient for the environment, whatever, right? And it's like, dude, you're the same person. The same exact person from 7 years ago. It's nobody ever learns. It's crazy.
And then I call it like the no coiner dilemma. It's like in a bull market, people are like, oh, Bitcoin's too expensive, I don't want to buy here and be the dumb money. And then in a bear market, they're like, oh, well, it's too risky, it's crashing, I don't want to buy now. And then in the next market cycle, they're like, they justify it by saying, well, I could have bought lower in the previous market cycle, so I'm going to wait. I have that price bias, so I'm going to wait. And then people just end up waiting and just never taking the leap.
Totally.
I am, though, experiencing more people in the last 2 weeks in my friend group, just friends, family members, whatever, coming to me saying, like, after the price dropped, like, hey, I want to learn about Bitcoin now.
Nice.
And that is unique. Like, I've never experienced quite that in the previous bubble pops. Usually it's just like it was all FOMO, and then people didn't know why they wanted it. They were just like, it was price driven. There was like, when the price came down, they were just forgot about it. They were like, yeah, well, I don't want Bitcoin anymore, like you just said, Chris. But now with inflation going up and the price of gas continually going up and all this craziness happening in the world, I do think that people are fundamentally starting to realize the money's broken, and Bitcoin is money. It's been money since the beginning. Mm-hmm. The more and more successful people that people like respect get into Bitcoin, even though some of them shill JPEGs and Ponzi schemes, Bitcoin does seem to stick. It seems to be like having more of like a breakthrough moment now. I don't know. Maybe it's just the high inflation or something, but I'm getting more people coming to me being like, yeah, I want to start learning about Bitcoin now.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, like our generation, like we haven't really known inflation, right? Like we've only seen decreasing interest rates, and like we've only known for the most part like bullish markets and falling rates. And for the first time, like people are realizing like, oh shit, COVID, you know, trillions of money getting printed, rates going up, inflation, like, oh yeah, these are like real world problems that previous generations have had to deal with. And what's the solution? And people are realizing, I think, and this is great, that Bitcoin, like you guys have alluded to, is it's the best option we have, right? And it's even better than gold.
Totally. Yeah. Gold has so basically it's like, here's the big idea. This is what, like, if I was going to leave everybody in the audience with one thing, I would leave them with this. Like, humanity has only had two monies, gold and then Bitcoin. If you think about all the fiat currencies, they really run on a shadow gold standard, right? And for a while, they ran on an actual gold standard. And so Bitcoin is humanity's next form of money. And it's basically just a digital version of gold. So essentially, like, gold was fantastic at storing value throughout time, but it was not good at sending value throughout space. Then you had fiat currencies, which were amazing at sending value through space, but not sending value through time. And now we have Bitcoin, which can send value through time and space, right? And this is why it's such a next level monetary technology. And if you transported yourself back in time and you found yourself in 700 BC at the monetization of gold, right? And you just started hoovering up all the gold you possibly could find, and you were hoarding it, people would think you were a fucking whack job. They would be like, why don't you get chickens or goats or something useful, man? Like, what's with all these shiny rocks you're collecting? You'd be like, you'll see. You'll see. You're gonna rue the day,
700 years.
Yeah. And then, you would have been seen as a quack, but then later you would have been seen as a visionary. And I think it's very similar to what's happening now in Bitcoin. And like, once you really understand like what sort of the principles behind Bitcoin, what a next level computer science breakthrough it actually is, and you start to really deeply get it at a fundamental level, you start to realize like this is the biggest game-changing technology we've seen since like the invention of the printing press. Like, this is a really, really big deal. And the same way the internet reshaped society, Bitcoin is going to reshape society in an even greater manner. And like, that's the big idea. Get your hands on as much Bitcoin as you possibly can, because we're about to live through this transition.
Hear, hear. Well said, man. Brad, any final thoughts?
No, that was perfect. Let's end it on that.
Cool. Awesome. Where can guys reach out to you if they want to connect?
I'm usually on Clubhouse like all the time, just talking shit. So if you want to hop on that app, it's fun. We have good Bitcoin conversations on there. Brad is on there often, and we just like, shoot the shit, talk about the day's events and Bitcoin, whatever. It's a good like sort of community focused like learning apparatus / entertainment venue. So that's probably the best.
What's your handle on there?
I think I'm just at HODL on there.
Oh. People to connect with you.
So I'm also on Clubhouse quite a bit. Twitter at Brad Mills Can. If you want to listen to my podcast, Magic Internet Money Podcast. But yeah, Clubhouse, just go follow Cafe Bitcoin on Clubhouse. And yeah, I'm in there a few hours a day at least. I mean, just be prepared though. There's some toxic maxis in there. So if you come in there expecting to have a love fest and you're about to ask about latest shitcoin XYZ, not everybody's so patient. Just be forewarned. You gotta like find me. If you find me, I'll have a patient conversation with you.
Yeah. Cool. Well, guys, thanks for taking the time to hang out and chat today. I think this was really productive. And, again, I really hate seeing people get wiped out. And if I can do anything just to save one person from losing their life savings, then all this shit was worth it. And you guys have a lot of experience and you've seen it, all the same stuff that I've seen. And I think it's probably valuable for newbies to kind of hear this. And hopefully people will learn the easy way and not have to fucking lose everything.
Totally. Yeah, and I would just say to the audience, who's primarily traders, like, delineate, draw a dividing line down your investing life, and trading is what you do for like work, day job, hobby, whatever it is for you, and then investing is something you do for your long-term future self. and take your profits from, bucket A and put them in bucket B and hold them over the long term. Don't like use your entire stack to trade, because that always usually ends in disaster.
Oh yeah. Yeah. We talk a lot about different capital buckets, right? Having long-term, short-term, and follow your own risk tolerance. Awesome.
Absolutely.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for being here, and have a great weekend, and we should do this again sometime.
Absolutely, man. Happy to. Anytime.
You should come on Clubhouse sometime with us, Chris, and shoot the shit.
Absolutely. I've never been on there. Never been on Clubhouse.
It's fun. We, the Bitcoin community is hilarious and entertaining and crazy all at once. And so like, the other audio apps have like rules of decorum where it's like, thank you, I'm done speaking. Like Bitcoin Clubhouse is not like that. You say something somebody doesn't like, and somebody's like, this guy's a fucking moron. Fuck yourself. You're like, what'd you say to me? You heard me, bitch. Like, what do you think I said?
Yeah. Well, I'll have to get a bottle of whiskey and start it off with that. All right, guys. We'll talk to you later. Thanks again for coming.
All right, man.
Thanks.